What's up, everybody? What's up? It's your boy Chase. I am the host of Act, Protect, Engage. We are a Second Amendment and history-based podcast. The goal is to bring history alive, all right? We also want to talk about current events, social issues, political issues, anything that's juicy, we're going to get into, all right? So we're going to do a quick discussion. We're going to talk about cancel culture and what is and is not deemed acceptable, right? What can someone get away with in their past, right? Now, specifically, I'm talking about my man Joe Rogan. He's one of my influences, right? That got me to the podcast game. I really look up to him. I really enjoy his comedy. I also think he's a great person, and I've learned a lot watching his podcast. However, we all know what happened with Joe, with the things he said using certain racial slurs, which should never be said by certain individuals, no matter what they meant it in, no matter what the context. Now, the most disturbing thing about me, about this whole Joe Rogan issue, is the defense of what he did. Now, it's interesting. When I study for my podcast, when I prepare for my last 5 or 6 podcasts concerning segregation, concerning Reconstruction, the Black Codes, and in preparation for my Black History podcast, I did a lot of diving into speeches, into writings, essays of people of all various political beliefs, right? And one of the more surprising things I learned was that segregationists, i.e. racists, like Governor George Wallace of Alabama, people like him, they never once admitted to be racist. Never once. When George Wallace was asked to his face on William Buckley's program, William Buckley, the founder of National Review, the legendary conservative commentator, debater, writer, he's an author of many, many books. He had a great program. I think they had something like 2,000 episodes of his program where he debated and interviewed really, really famous, influential people, right? Buckley asked him straight to his face, was George Wallace the defender of segregation, the segregation now, segregation forever guy? You know him? The guy who stood in front of the steps of the University of Alabama and blocked federal marshals from escorting the first black student into the school. He denied being a racist. He denied it. He said, I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist. But guess what? I'm against communism. I'm against the Communist Party. A lot of the civil rights leaders were communist. All right, they have Marxist influences. All I want is states' rights. All I want to make sure is that the federal government doesn't get too big and too powerful and doesn't step on the little guy. People have the right to private property, to do what they want on their private property, to do what they want in their small business that they own. I listened to a lot of his speeches. He's a great speaker, a very, very solid, smart individual as far as intellect, right? He's able to convey his ideas very clearly. He's able to deflect very well. One of the disturbing, and the reason why I bring George Wallace up is because what he did was defend a root belief. He defended his root belief using smoke screens, using various distractions, using excuses. But at his core, George Wallace was a racist, okay? He did not want black people to be equal to white people. He did not want black people to be around white people in institutions of public learning or higher learning, on buses. He was afraid that if he granted black people the equal opportunity as whites, right, that the black race would rise up, and eventually surpass the white race. But it was never about that. All black folks wanted to do during the civil rights movement was have a level, equal playing field, right? So he would making all these excuses, but at his core, he was just a racist. If you ask him, he would deny it to your face. A lot of people are defending what Joe said, acting like, oh, it was old, it doesn't matter. Oh, but look at what the left does. The left does it all the time in rap music. It's in movies. What's wrong? Why does he have to apologize? Why does he have to apologize? What about this? How about you take responsibility and say, look, what Joe did was wrong. We condemn him. It was a mistake to say all those nasty words that are racial slurs that were used to demean black folks by white people, right? Let's be honest. Instead of saying we condemn that, what they say is they make excuses. Oh, it was a long time ago. That's old knowledge. People just trying to use it to cancel him. Why should he have to do it if rappers? Why should he not have to use it if rappers use it or people in movies use it? Instead of condemning it in the strongest terms and then saying, hey, but he's gotten a lot better now. We love him still. People make mistakes. That's the argument that someone who is not racist would say. That an argument of someone who doesn't really feel that in their freaking heart, right? See, there are a lot of people out here, what I've noticed, there's a lot of people out here who act like they embrace all people. They act like they're not racist. They act like they have your best interests in mind if you're a minority. I'm speaking to all my minority folks out there. There are people out there you might know that you might think that you know that tell you that they're for the cause, that they're for equality, that they think everyone should be equal. But in situations like this, when someone says the N-word multiple times in the past, they'll make excuses for him. There's no excuse for saying it for Joe Rogan. He'll say, what about black people? Black people isn't Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's not black. He's not a black person. He's not a rapper. He's not a Hollywood producer. He is a comedian. He's an individual. And he took it like a man and he apologized and he did the right thing. But there are people out there who will say, well, he shouldn't have to apologize because the left doesn't apologize. He's not even political. Joe Rogan isn't political. He's not left or right. He's never said he was. So why are you trying to equate him into a different argument? You see, it's called deflection. It's called smoke screens. It's called distractions. The segregationists did the same thing. Instead of arguing about why you would not let this black person go to school with your white son, they wanted to say it's not even about that. It's about states' rights. Why should we bow to the federal government? Why should we give up our rights? Why should we have to apologize because we want to protect our businesses? Protect them from what? What's wrong with Joe Rogan apologizing? Who cares if it's old? What's the point? I mean, okay, it's old. So what? He's still wrong, right? You see what I'm getting at? It's hard to put your finger on exactly because it's so subtle. And the one thing I fear that is happening, and I've opened my eyes to this, is I'm seeing a lot of disturbing rhetoric. And you only notice this if you go back and you study the speeches, the writings of racists. You see, I study the other side. I'm not just the type of person who looks at one side of the aisle. I study the racist. I know the history of the KKK. I've read some of their manuscripts. I've listened to speeches of Strom Thurmond. I've listened to speeches of George Wallace. I've read some letters. I've done my research on the enemy, on the opponent, and they use some of the same language that certain modern day parties use. I'm not going to name anything. I'm just saying the rhetoric is the same. It's the same. The reaction to integration is the same as the reaction to CRT. And I don't care what anyone says. All you got to do is open a history book. Open a history book. Look up the response to integration. Look it up. Compare them. Integration was a change in Southern life. It turned Southern life on its head. In the segregated South, life would never be the same again. These parents out here that are protesting CRT, that are spitting in administrators' face, that are fighting them, running over with cars because they want to teach their kids a variation of American history that is not mainstream, and they're literally going crazy and throwing fits over it. Go ahead and go back and study integration. Now, they're totally different things, but the response is very similar. They might not be waving signs saying N-word, N-word, but remember, language can change. You can make the same point without using any slurs. You can make the same point without saying you're a racist. All you need to do is switch some words around. Use certain tactics to disguise your position, like George Wallace and Strom Thurmond did. If you ask Strom Thurmond and if you ask George Wallace, and there's another guy, Judge Perez, that I looked at, I posted on Facebook, check it out, about Judge Perez. These three men said they were not racist. They had been asked, were you racist? They said no. Judge Perez turned around 5 minutes later and says the Negro is not moral. He had just said he wasn't racist 2 minutes before that. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm on a rant. It's something I noticed. God bless y'all. Stay safe. Chase's rant session. Ape.